Ooh, what a week. What a week. Your boy went viral this past weekend for saying absolutely nothing. What a doozy. And contrary to what some of you may be thinking right now, believe me when I tell you, this past week was a good week. It really was. It was a week of revelation and inspiration. It really was. But for those of you who may not be aware, and if this is your first time, if you visit this, happen to be watching this video, and this is your first time seeing this based upon what the description of it was, this is what happened on last Monday during the SWAC coaches press conference, when it was my time to ask Jackson State head football coach Deion Sanders a question.
Last question goes to Kenn Rashad.
Coach, at 9-0, you're undefeated, and obviously so far it's been a perfect season, if you will. But if you look at a team like this, would you consider this if you were looking at a team like this, is the team a work in progress? I mean, do you think that there is something that this team needs to? I guess what I'm asking is this a team that is looking for the right for answers in terms of is this a team that you're looking for
you talking about? You got me lost now, dog. You got to come on with it now. You got what you talking about? Like, are you talking about us?
Forgive me, Coach.
No, you good. Are you talking about us?
Yes.
Or Alabama?
I'm asking you if all for all of the good team, your play is what is clearly not my best moment, right? And if social media had it its way, they'd swear up and down that your boy was nervous. And let me put that to rest right now, which is the reason why I felt it was necessary to make this video. I was just too busy to do it earlier. That press conference was on Monday, and on Tuesday, I was on a plane to North Carolina to attend the funeral of Eric Moore, and I didn't get back until Tuesday, Wednesday. I didn't get back until Thursday, and then at that point, I had to play catch up so that we could prepare for the games on Saturday. So here we are, and I wanted to take this time now to explain what led to that situation, because I noticed that after explaining what happened to the visitors or to the individuals who post on the HBCU Sports message board, and as is the case with each week when the coaches conference is done, for whatever reason, I feel an obligation to post the video with them first, simply because that they take the time to support me. They can always go to Twitter and Facebook and all this other stuff. But the fact that they actually interact with each other, and provide user-generated content on the message board, which is helpful to our operation, just as a courtesy, man, I just feel an obligation to make sure that they get that information first. And after explaining it to them, I kind of thought that was enough. And I had a feeling that it would probably make its rounds on social media. Not to the extent that it did, though. And so as a result, I noticed after I left, and people were constantly sending me text messages and tagging me in various posts and so forth, I noticed that some of them had taken it upon themselves to try to, defend me and explain the situation and so forth. And to you individuals there, man, and this includes Jackson State fans who are adamant, and we have gone back and forth in our exchanges because they too have expressed some of their displeasure and what I've said about Deion Sanders in the past and so forth. But they continue to support, and I consider many of them friends, because for the simple fact that they have supported me for so long. And I'm talking in one case, my man PJ, damn near since day one. So I appreciate you all, and it was for that reason that I felt it was necessary for me to come out in front and center and explain what led to that. Okay. But the one thing that I want to make clear, it had nothing to do with nerves. Had nothing to do with me being so nervous about asking Deion Sanders a question that I just couldn't ask. Because as you'll see later, I've asked Deion Sanders a question before. And it had nothing to do with nerves, believe me. Okay. But let me just put some things in proper perspective and in context to kind of explain to you what led to that situation. This past summer, after returning from a trip from Orlando, Florida, my wife, yours truly, my wife and my son, we caught a case of COVID. We are all vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and we all experienced very mild symptoms, low-grade fever, scratchy throat, occasional cough, and of course, fatigue, headache, and so forth. And for the most part, it all lasted for a period of about 4 to 5 days. And at that point, after testing negative, I pretty much thought that I can pretty much go ahead and just resume life as I had always been living it, doing what I typically do. And what I noticed since recovering, and to some degree even now, I have moments, man, where I can talk and be just as coherent. And in an instant, I can just completely lose train of thought and can't for the life of me remember either what I was talking about, what I want to say next, regardless of what. It happens, man. Brain fog is I've heard people refer to it as brain fog, and I think that's probably the best description that I can come up with. And when I shared that explanation to individuals on the board, they too talked about some of their issues that they experience currently with post-COVID, and I guess the long-term effects. And I guess in this case, it was considered a perfect storm, if you will, when you put in consideration how I've been critical about some of the things Deion Sanders has said in the past, and when you put in consideration that it was me and asking Deion Sanders this question on a live stream press conference that we stream live. That was our actual feed. Kenn Rashad, you're next. Coach, and the question was supposed to be, considering the team's 9-0 start, I could only assume that there are probably some things that you would agree the team needs to improve upon. Now, he had already talked about the need to reduce penalties, occasional drop passes by the wide receiver. And I just simply wanted to expound to see if he could possibly provide some additional details on some other things that he thought the team needed to improve upon. And damn it, I just could not get it out. When it was time for me to deliver that question, I simply blanked out. That is not an excuse. If you don't believe anything I'm telling you right now, do know that is not an excuse. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in countless press conferences. Guys who follow me and you interact with me, I've asked tons of questions, hundreds of questions in press conference. I'm not nervous. But this just happened to be the perfect storm when you put in consideration all of the players involved. And this is what happened. So it made its rounds on social media. But what you witnessed there was a real life, real time moment of what I deal with post COVID every once in a while. It's not something that just happens every day, but it happens. I can be talking to my wife. I can be talking to my kids. I can even be on a Zoom call, business calls, and occasionally it jumps up and it bites me. It does. And like I said, some of you shared your experience post-COVID and said that you guys have had similar problems. So that is the explanation. I'm not trying to make an excuse, because that's not me. And if for whatever reason, if I screw up or if I put something out there, I'll tell you guys all the time, hold me accountable. But this is not an excuse. What you saw was real time. It wasn't made up, and I wasn't nervous. I just simply couldn't deliver. And let me also say this to Coach Sanders, thank you. Because that 40 some odd seconds, you showed a lot of patience and ultimately was proactive in, you probably say, look, we got to move on. But you were proactive in literally bailing me out. So I thank you for that. And again, which is proof that, and I hope he thinks that. Now I understand he may not necessarily like all the things that I've said, but this isn't a personal issue. I'm a journalist. I've told you guys repeatedly, I hold myself to a standard to set the record straight when I think something that's either wrong or someone says something wrong. I hold myself to a standard to have to set the record straight from time to time. And yes, there is a series of social media tweets or articles or whatever the case may be in which we've attempted to set the record straight based upon some things that Deion Sanders has even said, misinformation that we thought needed clarification, whatever the case may be. Now, for some of you, that's difficult to fathom. It's just simply my role as a journalist, Deion Sanders as a coach, and it's a professional relationship. That's it. I don't get in the weeds. Unlike some other media individuals, I can't speak for them. But there are some of you who just simply wants to make this a personal matter, and it is not. Okay, so that's pretty much what this is all about, and I felt the need to address this. So it made its round on social media, and that wasn't surprising. But what really surprised me was you guys were blowing me up, sending me text messages and so forth. But what really surprised me was somebody sent me a screenshot of an article that was posted on Blavity. And now I'm thinking to myself, well, damn. You mean to tell me someone actually thought this was worthy of writing a story? This was actual news? Okay, well, so be it. But this was the headline. And it was also published on Yahoo News as well. Keep that same energy. Journalist Kenn Rashad had the chance to tell Deion Sanders how he felt and flopped hard. While he was ready to openly blast Coach Prime in the past, HBCU sports fans are calling out Kenn Rashad for having a totally different vibe while directly addressing Deion Sanders. That was something, and I want to show something here because let me see if I can find this. In that article, he went through a series of he shared a lot of the social media posts that I published, detailing the history of some of the things that I've said about Deion Sanders. But the one thing that I do want to clarify, and I'm dead serious about this, because I explained this, Kendrick and I explained this in a video previously, in which he indicated in his article, for the uninitiated, Rashad has shared some less than pleasant words about the Jackson State head football coach in the past. In September, Rashad blasted Sanders on Twitter by calling him the ultimate sellout and accusing him of spewing false narratives about payout rates within HBCU athletic programs. He's referring to this tweet. He's referring to this tweet in which I did say, and this is the tweet, one could argue, and again, Kendrick and I did a video on this particular tweet and the so-called outrage that people had about me supposedly calling Deion Sanders the ultimate sellout. I said in that tweet, one could argue that Deion Sanders is the ultimate sellout for not being an honest broker during his rant about HBCU payouts. HBCUs are paid the same, and in some cases more, than other PWI FCS schools when they play up against FBS schools. Beware of false narratives. Now, in that video, Deion Sanders provided individuals with a bunch of examples, payout examples of Marshall, I forget the schools, Marshall, Appalachian State, and some other schools, and they all played against Power 5 opponents. But all of these schools were FBS schools, and they all had pretty much $1 million paydays, $1 million+ paydays. But then he used those examples, and then he started spewing out numbers that HBCUs were getting paid when they played up against FBS schools. And I said, beware of false narratives, because if you want to make comparisons, you need to make inline comparisons. Because there was a published article on Hero Sports that detailed every single FCS game of which FCS teams played up against FBS opponents, and they indicated what those actual payouts were. And the record clearly showed that HBCUs were not being screwed, or that HBCU administrators, as Deion Sanders was trying to imply, it was his words. If you notice in this tweet, the ultimate sellout is in quotes, because those were the words that Deion Sanders himself used to describe the practices of HBCU administrators, ADs, and so forth, for selling out our student athletes for peanuts. That's what he said. I just simply set the record straight, because there was absolutely nothing to indicate that there was truth. It was wrong. It was just flat out wrong. And the data that he utilized to try to support that argument was why I said beware false narratives. So no, I'm not calling him the ultimate sellout, but I will say this, and I made it clear in that he did sell out by not being an honest broker, because he didn't provide you with the appropriate data necessary to make that point. That's all this was. So I just felt the need to set the record straight on that regard. Now, with respect to me and asking Deion Sanders questions before, let's view the tape.
Next question goes to Kenn Rashad.
Coach Kenn Rashad, HBCU Sports. Let me take a moment to congratulate you on the 60 Minutes interview that aired on yesterday. But I do want to ask you, during that segment, you indicated, and you said frequently in the past, that you were never recruited by an HBCU coming out of high school. However, an interview that was conducted by Rob Calloway last year with Hall of Fame head coach Rudy Hubbard at FAMU, Coach Hubbard described in quite a bit of detail of the steps that he took to recruit you to FAMU, in which he indicated that he didn't necessarily have the budget to bring you there, but you indicated to him that once you made your visit to Florida State, that you would indeed take a moment to go by the campus. Do you recall that experience?
Not whatsoever. I don't want to, let me be careful with this, because Coach Hubbard is a hero to me in the coaching carousel or circuit or pedestal. I don't know what word to put in there. So I want to be very careful with my words. I don't recall that. It may have happened, but I don't recall it. I really don't.
Appreciate it, Coach.
You gotta, that's hard for me to understand, because you got to understand I got drafted in baseball as well by the Kansas City Royals. So for someone to take a shot at me, that was going to be a tough one. You know, that was really going to be a tough one. So I don't recall that. I apologize. I don't recall it.
Thank you, sir. That question was asked during week 7 after Deion's appearance on 60 Minutes. That the day before. He was on 60 Minutes on Sunday. I asked him that question on Monday. No one said anything about me being nervous. No one said anything actually about anything. And we purposely didn't publish the story. We would have been justified in doing a follow-up story on that, because that matter regarding FAMU head coach Rudy Hubbard, who went in great detail to explain what he went through in trying to recruit Deion Sanders to Florida A&M as a quarterback, because Deion Sanders played quarterback in high school, according to Rudy Hubbard. He explained the detail. He didn't have the budget to have him to come up to Florida A&M to make a visit. And according to Rudy Hubbard, Deion Sanders told him, "That's okay, coach. when I make my visit to Florida State, I'll make sure to visit the campus, which is literally down the street. Okay? So I wanted to set the record straight on that. Contrary to what you all believe, I wasn't nervous, and I wasn't afraid to ask Deion Sanders the question. It's just unfortunately that a very personal, private / health matter just happened to blow up, and it became a public issue. And so I'm trying to set the record straight in that regard. However, to my man, Nick Finley. Well, and I'll get this, but I want to say this though to you all before I get to Nick. This doesn't change anything. I appreciate those of you who felt the need to defend me on social media and so forth. I really do. But I do not view myself as a victim. When that incident took place, and after that call was over, I didn't go to some corner and ball up in a fetal position, crying, saying, why me? Why did this happen to me? That did not happen. It did not happen, okay? If Deion Sanders says something incorrect, or any coach, Roland Martin included, because I noticed someone took the time to put Roland Martin's tweet inside that article. If you're wrong, I'm going to let you know you're wrong. But this changes anything. That video doesn't define who I am. My body of work speaks for itself. Now, despite all the noise, this was a good week. Engagement went up. Subscriptions went up. The likes, the following went up. Social media, look, the traffic on the website went up, and ultimately revenue went up. What ultimately happened was HBCU Sports was elevated and was put in a position to where we increased our audience. So I'm not trying to put a spin on this, but if this is the type of press I'm going to get for saying absolutely nothing, then to my man, Nick Finley at Blavity, hey man, if you think it's worthy of publishing a story for me saying absolutely nothing, maybe you'll consider doing a story on this video. Cause you know what, brother, you good for business.
Cause you know how to put some money in the nigga's pocket.
I'll see you guys next time, man. God bless you.